Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much again for joining us for another, I feel like it's another episode of the 12 Days of Christmas. Who knows what we have in store for you tonight? We are winding down. We have just two more guests, and then, of course, our wrap up party on Saturday night, of which I hope everybody will come back and join us. Perhaps, maybe even if you've not been able to join us live and you've been watching the recordings, it's Saturday night, maybe no work interference. So feel free to jump on in and join us live, even if nothing else, for the wrap up party. But again, I want to thank everybody for following along with all of this. And you can tell we're getting towards the end, starting to lose my voice a little bit, but that's just because I'm always so excited and so amped up by the time I get here at the end of my day as well, with all of our guests and all the fun things that we have to share with you guys. So before we jump into our conversation with Julia Hilbrandt, we are going to, of course, just go over a couple of things. Now, mind you, we want to say, do your best to stay in if you can till the end of the program if you're live with us, because don't forget, as we've done every night, a little incentive, a little gift for you is that Julia, at the end, I will have her select a number based on the number of participants that we currently have with us as we wind down the program. And then somebody is going to be getting a $20 store credit to shop with us at Life. So a little post-holiday gift, if you will. Now, on the other hand, a lot of you are starting to clamor and starting to make sure that your tickets are in there for the basket that is going to be drawn on Saturday night at the wrap up party. Now, remember, you don't have to be in it to win it for that. So, of course, if you've made a purchase with us throughout this time, or if you've not, you've got until Friday evening, midnight, to make a purchase during this 12 days of Christmas. Couple of reminders: if you purchase something in which the code does not apply, then be sure to let us know in the comments that you are part of TDOC. And that way we can make sure that we can tabulate your dollars spent and get the appropriate amount of tickets in for the drawing. So remember, for every $10 that you spend, you're going to get one ticket to go in towards the basket. Now, I will say the number of tickets are starting to increase, but that's just the fun of it. And we also opened up the opportunity to register for the new Zoom series that we've created with Linda Courtwright, since everybody was so excited about the talk that we had with her on New Year's Eve. So that is open, and that's another way, of course, for you to also be able to get in a couple of extra tickets and get, of course, a very worthwhile, fun, pictorial, and educational program with her. So we're looking forward to kicking the first one off on January 16th, and then we'll be doing one in February and one in March as well, because it's winter after all. So what the hell are we doing? We're all inside, being cozy, keeping warm, working on our knitting. So what better thing than to listen about all of her fiber adventures? Now, aside from that, I want to jump right into things for tonight. I've gone over a multitude of times the things that are going to be in the basket, and wait till you see what is going to be added to the basket with our guest this evening. It is beyond generous. I'm super excited and a little jealous myself as well. Now, I want to start off by saying, of course, our guest is Julia Hilbrandt, and she is the face and the name behind the company that makes these gorgeous felted bags. Now, I'm going to open it up by at least kind of telling the story a little bit about how we had a chance to finally meet and how I have known of Julia over all of these years, because as I told her, I'd always kind of fangirled after her bags and her, what I would consider to be a long-standing history in our fiber community. So when I first started years ago in the industry, I don't know how or why, I just remember that I had heard of Julia's bags, and I remember seeing them. I can't remember what venue it was at. And I want to say that maybe, were you ever at a Stitches, Julia?
No, no. I did do Vogue knitting twice.
And I feel like this was in the early days, and maybe it was Vogue. I feel like I can picture it in my head. But I do remember walking past your bags and seeing them. And then, of course, kind of like the signature style, that you have. And then, especially as you started to embellish a little bit, with the dots and some of the other things. So I just know I've always seen your bags. And I know, and I'll be anxious to find out exactly how long you've been doing it, but it's just something that I've admired, especially as so many people have come and gone in the industry in itself, and these things happen. So I think that's a credit to you as well, of course. Now, for me, how we came upon this is that I had an opportunity to be part again for actually the second in person time, the third time because I did it on Zoom. Patty Lyons does her annual retreat called Affinity. And this year, we had an opportunity to be part of the retreat again in New Jersey, of all places. So it was nice, it was close. The last time we were together for Affinity as part of the retreat, it was up in Maine, which was absolutely gorgeous and absolutely beautiful. The views were astounding. It was a little nicer to not have to drive quite so far, of course, and be in Jersey instead. And so I find that one of the things about doing these retreats, because it's a kind of a closed population, if you will, is that not only do we get to chat with the participants a bit more than maybe you would at a regular show. But then there is a lot of downtime for those of us that are vendors, or the participants will kind of come in all at once in the beginning, and maybe the marketplace is open for an extended period of time. So then us as vendors are kind of hanging out and checking out each other's stuff. And it really gives the vendors a chance to chit chat and network as well. And so actually my relationship with Laura Bellows with Jewel Designs, who will be on with us tomorrow night, and the fact that we also now wholesale her gorgeous jewelry is as a result of Affinity. And then I also had an opportunity to get to know Julia, chat with her a little bit, and then that's where the idea came for her to be part of this. Now, we started talking early on, and then I'll be the first to admit, as so often happens, that was in September. So that means then we kind of got sucked up into the fall show, festival, traveling, peak sweater weather, all of that kind of stuff. And as all of us, as one women person businesses, it's really easy to kind of get lost in the sauce. And even though you have great intentions, you kind of like just lose track of that. But we have a mutual friend, and hopefully she has jumped on. Did you remind her, Julia, to jump
I did.
on?
She said she's here.
All right, wonderful. Well, Deb Stores is a person that I've met over the past couple of years and who's been a wonderful supporter of Long Island Yarn and Farm. And then lo and behold is also a good friend of Julia as well. So Deb was kind of our like go-between. And I would say to Deb, like, don't worry, please let her know. I'm totally interested in working with her. I love her stuff. I just have to like circle back to it. And I forget now what made me finally sink my teeth into you. Were we
You were
doing?
you were doing you were hanging out with your cat. With the cat.
Oh,
And I asked what the cat's sister's name was. Friendly Kitty sister.
see, you opened your mouth. That's how you got
I did.
into this. That's right. That's right. I was doing a live on Instagram, and I was spending a little quality time with Friendly Kitty, and Julia just happened to jump on and commented. And sometimes that's all it takes for me. It's just a little bell to go off, a little light bulb, a little reminder. And then I think I pretty much ran back inside and accosted you, slid into your DMs, and was like, okay, we got to do this. So that's kind of where we've landed. And I also will give a big thank you to Julia, because I've maybe slightly dragged her kicking and screaming into this, but I told her it is creating such a well-rounded program, in my opinion, because I love having all different kinds of makers. And so I think in this conversation, yes, it's going to be about the fiber industry, but it's going to be about a different type of maker, of which there's probably people on here that could compare to the likes of being able to sew, like Julia, as opposed to myself, who I'm lucky if I can sew a button on. Although I did make a pillow in home economics. Well, now it's called family and consumer sciences. But back in the day, I did make a pillow, and I'm sure I learned some fancy stitches here and there and used a sewing machine. And I kid you not, that's about the extent of my abilities. So, without further ado, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me and for being a part of this conversation, so people have a chance to get to know you and get to know your face and get to know a little bit about your design process. But before I forget, because she just moved, so introduce over there who our additional guests are.
Oh, Petunia, that's rude. Petunia and Walter.
Oh my God, actually, I didn't know it. So wait, is Walter's closer to you?
They switched positions since we started.
All right. Well, he threw me off because he's not really moving. And again, guys, when we first got on, Petunia was sitting so still. She looked like a statue. So she is just absolutely gorgeous. And remind me, is she a doodle?
Golden Doodle.
Golden
Golden Doodle, yeah.
Oh, and I know you told me she's 3 and she's just
Mhm.
beautiful. And how old is Walter?
7 or 8. He was a rescue, so I've had
And,
him for 6 years now.
and have they always gotten along so well?
Well, Walter is in charge. He is the boss. And as long as she obeys him, which she does, it's all fine.
And then otherwise, I'm assuming she'll get like a little smack to the nose if
Yeah,
she.
he bites her. He bites her. He chases her out of the spots and steals the warm spots. Yes, it's a relationship.
Well, thank you so much. I actually specifically asked her to make sure that at least Petunia was on because I thought she was so beautiful. So I didn't mean to slight Walter in that process. So we're happy to have both of them because, of course, we've got a lot of pet lovers on here, and in particular, I know a lot of cat lovers as well too. So tell them we said thank you for joining us. All right.
Thanks.
So, how long have you? Because I have no idea, and that's the other thing too, guys. Honestly, I really don't know anything about Julia other than her bags, and then other than like we sort of chit chatted a little bit. So that's the extent of it, which is always the fun of it for me. So, how long have you been involved in this industry, doing what you're doing as far as making your bags? Did it start out that way? Did it evolve to bags? I have no idea.
My first sheep and wool was 2009. I had been doing it much smaller scale, much smaller shows for 4 or 5 years, maybe before that. It evolved. I worked for a lot of artists over the years. I've worked for jewelers and furniture makers and clothing designers. And then I worked for a hat maker, and the felt of the hat bodies really fascinated me. And I've always loved wool. I don't knit. I can't figure it out. I've tried. And so I found felt and I just started making bags. You can see a bag. If any of you, I make the MDK bag, the knitter's tote, if anybody follows them. This is a bag, the gray felt, it's industrial felt. It is 100% wool, but it's a machined felt. So that's what all the bags are. In the beginning, it was just gray. And then we evolved a little bit, and I have charcoal. I introduced some other colors into the mix, and I needle felt dots on, which I used to just do, but now it shows you can pick your dots. So you can come into your booth, my booth, and pick your dots, and I sit there and we'll dot them on for you.
But so back up, what is your background? Like, not that you had to have gone to college or maybe some type of art school, but I mean, where, like, so what is your background?
I mean, I did 4-H in high school, a little bit of sewing, not a ton. My mother always sewed. And then I went to school for math and switched to art. And I did drawing and printmaking. So not fiber by any means, nothing design oriented. And then I did some encaustic painting and oil painting, and I just sort of found my way here. And this is the only thing I sew. I know you said that I sew really well, but I only sew bags.
Hey, well, that still means you sew.
I sew a little bit.
Now, is that because you don't consider it sewing because you use a machine, or are there any parts of the bag that you're sewing by hand?
No, it is all done by the machine. I used to sew the handles on there and now put on with rivets. I'm just not a technical sewer. I have sewn clothing, but like that's a whole different ball game. And
Well, yeah, I mean,
a lot more
about
things,
pattern making and all
right.
that kind of stuff. But regardless, if you can operate a sewing machine without killing yourself, as far as I'm concerned, you can sew. So give yourself that kind of credit for sure. But
I
I
only
mean,
sewed my finger once.
in terms of your, but so like, okay, art school, I am always just so interested. And, not that maybe, I mean, who knows, somebody could be on here and they're, looking to change careers, or they're younger and they're just following their path organically and wondering where it's going to land them. And so, you get out of school. I'm always just so curious people's process, because maybe that's why, because people ask me that all the time, like, how did you land up here? And there's always a story to it. And so, you graduate from school, and then, I know you said you were doing different things, and then, but like, the average person still doesn't land working for a
No,
hat maker.
no, I worked in a physical therapy office first. I mean, I worked at a gas station, I pumped gas, I did all these crazy things. And then I worked for a jeweler. And it was just a one woman operation. She had a couple people work for her, and I did a lot of shows with her. So I had no idea what the show world was until working for her. And we did all the New York Gift Show, all the different shows in the city, and the Javits Center, and I met a lot of people who were making things and making a living making things. So that was where I saw it and kind of knew it could be done. I never would have thought of that. And coming out of art school, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I didn't know what to do as a math major either, quite honestly. I didn't want to teach. I'm not
Well,
a
you didn't.
no. And that's the thing you do. So
Yeah.
I had to figure out another path.
Well, I mean, then maybe, obviously, in a way it's good that you switched to art, versus math. And again, that's what I always think is so cool, is we don't always have to have a plan, right? And as long as you just kind of follow what your passions are. And so, like, working with the jeweler, and then, so ending up with, perhaps, let's say, the hat maker, did she work with wool? Like, where did your, not being a knitter, I'm assuming it's not like you had livestock or had a connection that way. So, like, where did your affinity for wool kind of come into play?
My mother did knit. She sewed, but she did also knit. And we did have goats, but that didn't really give us fiber. I liked scratchy wool sweaters. I was that weird little person who could put them on. I mean, I can have wool on my skin everywhere except my forehead, but I like wool. And the hat maker had a lot of her hats were straw, like, and very decorative kind of styling, but she had a line that were wool felt hats, and they would block them all. And they had this whole facility, which was amazing. And the wool for hats comes in sort of like a cone shape. It's
Okay.
not something flat. It doesn't start as a flat sheet. It's this weird kind of cone shaped item. And then they put it over the hat mold, and they had these great big gas powered things. It was an amazing room. But I used to play with the felt scraps all the time. And I didn't know where to find sheet felt. And there weren't a ton of places selling it. And I eventually found a scrap supplier selling weird off-size pieces of felt. And then they ran out of the scraps, and then I kind of traced it back to find. And there's more places now to get the felt. Germany is the big producer of all the beautiful colored wool felts.
And then, so what made you finally, had you started making like prototypes or anything, like, that gave you the confidence to leave working for the hat maker? Did you leave the hat maker just to immediately going to work for yourself?
No, I had left the hat maker and went to a furniture maker. So I still actually do some computer work for. And I mean, that was also part of the process with sort of construction, because they're more linear and pieced together in a way different than the decorative nature of the hat.
Right.
I felt for my job where I make gaskets. Yes, that is the industrial felt that's used for gaskets. So it was a slow process. It was slow. I mean, I worked the clothing designer, did a lot of beautiful boiled wool items. So it's like the boiled wool didn't have the density that I wanted for the bags.
Right.
So they're sort of like leather, but not.
Yeah, they are very, I mean, it's a very thick, I mean, I don't know if that heavy duty is the right word for it, but did you ever think that you were going to be in business for yourself?
I didn't. It was sort of working for the jeweler and meeting so many people that were doing it. It seemed like a possibility. It's not something I ever thought of long ago, but, and it's no. So no, that's the answer to that question.
But I mean, if you think about it, like you said, being able to see other people doing it, being able to do the shows, getting the connections, like meeting people, I mean, all of those things, in a sense, just hopefully kind of lined up for you to be like, I might be able to do this. So, what made you finally take the leap? And was it bags? Like, was it bags right off the bat? No pun intended.
No, it was bags. I liked bags. I liked purses. So that was sort of an area to focus because I knew I had to focus somewhere. Um, I didn't, the leap, it didn't come for a long time, honestly. I mean, I was doing it. My job just sort of went little more and more part-time. And when I needed to do a show, they'd let me go and do shows.
Yeah.
But it was definitely the jeweler and knowing those people and learning about shows, because honestly, I had no idea the amount of shows that were out there. And even when I applied to sheep and wool, I did not realize what exactly that was going to do. And I live in Rhinebeck, so I should have known, but it was smaller then.
So, meaning you had never been to Rhinebeck itself, you just applied to the show, got in, and then did not know what you were in store for.
Well, no, I went a couple times, but it was when it was smaller and it was only half the fairgrounds. And there was like a stone show, a gem and finding show in the upper buildings. It wasn't. And so I don't know what year it took over the entire fairgrounds, but I think that was right around the time that I got in. Yeah. And I was so clueless when I did that show and thought that would be a good show. And I thought I had enough stuff, but I was surprised pleasantly. But
You figured 2010.
well,
So
2009 was my first one. Yeah.
right. I'm just using 2010 because don't make me. You're the math person, not me. So I'm
In the
like, all right,
past.
we're in 24 now, so that's 14. So what you're looking at 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I know when we first got in for the first time, and my dear friend Linda Unger was still here on the island and working for me, and she would just laugh at me. She was like, "You have no clue. You have no clue what you're in store for." And we got in last minute, so it's not even like I had a chance to prepare for it necessarily.
Mhm.
So it is definitely one of those things that you don't know what you're in store for until you're
No.
actually in the middle of it, and then you're just like, I was. It was like ignorance is bliss. That's kind of like what she was laughing at me for, because I'm like, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be fine, and she's like, you have no clue.
Yeah.
But
No.
it's an exciting, oh my god, in terms of what you get as a result of the show. And so I'm assuming, like, going into like where you started, how many different types of bags did you start with?
I was all over the place. Because a lot of what I was using was still the scrap supply then, it was smaller pieces. There was narrow strips, which is where some of my pleats come from. I would have to find one with the pleats, but where there's sort of an outer, they appear as a ruffle or a pleat. So there was probably only one of each style when I did it. When the first show I showed up, I may have had 40 bags, but it was a very sad little booth, which I thought I knew what I was doing. And I thought I was all prepared and the booth looked great. And then the people around me just kind of looked at me a little funny. They all love me and are my friends now, but they were like, yes, she doesn't know what she's doing. And I didn't. And it was very visible, but people just came in and bought, and Clara Parks bought from me. And then Clara Parks blogged about me. I didn't know who Clara Parks was when she was there. And then she did a blog post, and then my email one day, because I had a website, but it wasn't a shop.
Mhm.
And then there was just, I woke up one morning to about 60 emails and just didn't know what
That's
was
like,
going
wait,
on.
that would be like going viral before going viral was a thing,
Right.
right?
Yeah, because yeah, there was no viral then. But so Clara Parks, she's my person.
That's amazing. Now, have you kind of kept in touch with her ever since, or it was just that sort of, one-off opportunity, of course, which is still great?
No, she said I've seen her over the years, and I did her retreat. She did used to do the Knitters Review Retreat,
Okay.
and that was in the year I did it. It was in Canandaigua by Rochester, New York, and so I did her show, and she has some bags. I've seen her at other shows. Yeah,
Well, the
so
nice thing, proof positive, is regardless, like you said, of whether or not you had a fully functional, website at the time, there's people like Clara Parks that are just so influential, in our industry that all it takes is for that person to say, this is a great bag. I got one. You need to go get one. And they're going to find you, no matter what. And
mhm.
look, we all have to start somewhere, right? So if you've got a great product, who really gives a shit if your booth looks fancy and this and that? It's really, then think about it. It was kind of innocently a way for you to just showcase your product and not
Right.
have it overcrowded or, overshadowed by, fancy lighting and fancy displays. You can look at
Lights? No, I think
that.
I did lights, but no, it
Well,
was.
I mean, either way, did it just kind of kick off from there?
It was still because as I said, there was no website. I mean, there was a website with pictures. So it was still kind of slow and pokey. Right after that, I actually got in a really bad car accident. So it was January, late January, I was in a bad car accident, and I couldn't sew again until September.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was All sorts of stuff happened. And so I went to the next year, and I still didn't have as much as I should have. And someone commented, now, dear, you have to sew all year long. And I was like, well, I kind of couldn't, and I made him feel really bad. But yeah, so then it picked up from there. And then I did more shows and
So I'm curious about, I'd love to kind of back up and, my biggest thing is like when I have different ideas or just want to be able to do something or create something new or, so where does your felt for what you use now, let's put it that way. I mean, I know you
hmm,
said you worked off of scraps and stuff like that. So where does it come from? Do you know what type of wool it is? Like what's the background in terms of that, because I'm sure that's probably evolved over time as well, but to be able to get it, of course, at a cost that is worthwhile for you to then be able to sew it and then still turn it into something of which you can have a markup, because right, we need to at least pay some bills.
right.
So how does that process work? Where does it come from?
It is from an industrial felt supplier. So they don't give up not that they don't give up a lot of information. It is 100% wool. The wool's coming from South America.
Okay.
Um, they won't tell you what kind, not that I don't think that they honestly care what kind it is. With the industrial felt, it's someone just said that they buy gaskets of felt for their work. They're concerned about with what they're mainly concerned about with is um the there's all these specifications for like oil absorption and oil absorption, noise reduction, abrasion. There's this whole slew. So they focus more on that, and they'll tell you all of the specifications of what your kind of wool can do, your felt can do. Some of them are not 100% wool. This one is. Don't know if I'm answering your question. So
No,
it's
that's
still,
right. Wait, can I back up a second? What is the word you used, where you get it from? Industrial?
it's an industrial felt supplier.
What does that mean?
It's They make it for the industrial usage. So there's felt in the trunk of your car.
Oh,
There's felt for
so
gas.
they're
It's
not
made for
necessarily making it for upholstery
no.
or, okay, okay. I mean, again, I would have no idea. So I get what you're saying now. And does that go back to what you said because you were looking for something that was thicker or sturdier?
Yes. Well, and they were just what I found. I use 1/8" felt. Someone just asked. Yes, they use it for sound masking. As over the years, I've been working with this company for 10, 11 years, 12 years. And they've evolved, and they now have architectural grade, and they have designer felt. It's the same felt, but it's cleaner. There was a time where some sheep farmers asked me if we could use their wool to make the felt. And I went to the company and they said, well, we can't because it's too dirty or it's too this. And it was just too difficult for them to do. I don't know if they would do it now.
Is it a US based company? I'm just curious.
It's a US based company, but it's not being made here. There's very little felt being made in this country anymore.
Why? Do you know why?
I don't know if it's just like the whole kind of wool industry left, the textile. It is not the cleanest process. I think there's a lot of wastewater and there are chemicals used. So it's not the cleanest fabric.
Right. Well, I mean, look, that's the reality of, how you get different things. And, sometimes there's just only certain ways to arrive at it. Now, now I understand better in terms of like the industrial. Is that why you started out with everything is gray?
Yes.
It's like,
Because
although that would be super cool if you could open up your trunk and like, because I'm only using that analogy because you said it's like, the material in your trunk. Could you imagine if you get to open up your trunk and you'd have like a pink trunk or, some other cool color? But it makes sense now when you're saying that that's the kind of felt and what it's used for, that's why you just kind of had that more industrial color.
Right. I mean, you can get the German felts now. I mean, there's more of everything now. But the colored felts from Germany are significantly more per yard. So I do like the blue of the bag for the raffle for basket that is a German felt.
Okay. But you still get that from the same company.
No. No, I actually order that. This company does do some colors now. They've been increasing their color line, but that particular blue is actually the German one.
Now, just because we're on that topic of, and I don't know if you have handy, like in terms of swatches. So what different colors are you able to get now in addition to having your signature, basically your signature bag that's gray?
Now I can get almost anything. Like when they first did colors, they had 6 colors and it was like mustard and a really dull red and blue. And then gray and charcoal. So charcoal is part of the line officially now. So it's charcoal and the gray, everything comes in. And then the colors come in as bonuses for the year. When I was working with MDK, they do a different color bag for the past 2 years, kind of a specialty bonus bag.
Now, when you say like as far as the colors, meaning if you have certain styles, then those styles are always going to be in gray and charcoal. And then do you just maybe do other ones based on what you have available versus feeling like you have to do it on demand?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both on demand. Yeah, and if someone wants something, I will do a lot of custom stuff. So if I can get something, when I can get it, I kind of shop the remnant sales with the German felts so that I can bring the price down a little bit. Like Deb has a very lovely navy bag that she wanted a bag in navy blue. So it's like, I will get you some. So, we kind of play with that. I can play with that a little bit.
So what I love is, and I know you said you had some things kind of like nearby. So all in total, if somebody was to go to your shop, how many different styles do you have right now?
On the website right now, there's 9 styles. If anyone who's been in my booth, there's a lot more styles. And I often tell people that not everything is on the website. Just because I do get bored and I'm the one that sews them all. And so they kind of come and go. I bring them in and then I phase them out again and I bring them back again to keep it fresh.
All you, right?
Yep. Yes, just me. I do all of it.
And in terms of the felt, you get the felt, I'm assuming, is it in sheets or rolls?
I buy 20-yard rolls.
And then are you just manually, maybe not manually, I don't know, are you cutting the felt?
Yep, with a rotary cutter.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sitting at the work table now. The rolls are either 60 inches long or 72 inches long. They weigh 80 pounds when they come. So I have to fling them around and cut, and everything is straight edges that I cut. So I use a rotary cutter and a straight edge, and all of the bag styles, everything is straight. So there's not a ton of waste. I try to keep the waste really minimal.
Great.
And it's hard to cut a curve in a 1/8 inch piece of felt. So
Well, and I saw when I was kind of cruising through your site, I mean, I don't know if that was ways in which you would use waste, but I mean, I saw the coasters, and
mhm.
then I saw there was a post where you made like trees.
Christmas trees.
Yeah. So is that a
These were
way?
actually scraps.
That's what I was
This is,
going to say. Is that a way for you to use waste?
yes, this is the inside when I cut, where'd the bag go? When I do this seam on the inside, I cut the piece. And so I have all different sizes, and I make Christmas trees at Christmas time.
Awesome.
And then the coasters also started out as scraps, actually, but people really like them. So we make them all the time now, but it's still a way to use offcuts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's great. I mean, even regardless of the process going into the felt, at least if you're trying to kind of create like a zero waste, by the time you're done, then, hey, that's the best that you can do. So pull out some of the different styles for us, and I just would love to see them myself. I mean, to tell you the truth, again, as much as I've seen you over the years, a lot of times we are busy. So it's a matter of just sort of cruising by. And then, short of like a little bit of the homework that I've done, looking at the site and things like that, I really have no idea either. And I'm sure there's stories behind them. I'm sure there's ways in which you've gotten the names, of the different styles. So I'd love to see some. And, I'm sure people would be wanting to hear like design inspiration behind it, or maybe like different handles I see on the site that you use. And I love even some of the bags that are a little more plain in color, but then you've got like a pop of color in the handles and different materials for the straps and things like that. So
I don't know, does this one show up? I mean, okay, so this is a charcoal colored one.
yep.
This one is called the ping pong bag, which actually does have a story. The furniture maker that I work for makes beautiful wide plank tables, and someone custom ordered a dining table that would, no, a ping pong table that would double as a dining table. So we worked this whole thing, and he made these bronze brackets for the nets. We made the net out of felt. We provided them with a felt net. And then we made this bag, and it has pockets on the inside to hold the brackets. The ping pong table brackets, the net brackets, when you took them off, so you could use it for a dining table, because the main thing they wanted it for was ping pong, but that it would double as their dining table. Their kids really like ping pong.
That is
So
funny.
this is just a great big tote.
What are the handles made of?
They're leather. They are all leather. They're riveted on. Everything has.
Are you purchasing your handles? You're not making the handles.
I buy full hides cut into strips, and then I cut them to size.
Oh, wow.
And punch the holes and rivet, and so I get a bunch at a time, and then I do it that way.
Then I shouldn't have assumed.
I can do fabric handles. There are some people who don't like leather, so I can use webbing and work all that so that we don't have any leather on the bag. There are a number of vegan people who have requested that are fine with the wool, but there's a bunch this year. This one that I showed you before, this is another way to use the scraps. And I've been cutting the scraps, and then these are just stitched on, sort of flowery.
So it's just sort of like an applique on the outside.
Yes. So we have it in, using some of the colors.
Oh, cool.
We got creative.
I was just gonna say now, is that just more or less like you just kind of take the artistic leisure, I call it, to like embellish the bags versus like making a carbon copy each time so that you can at least just have a
Yes,
little bit of fun with it?
yes. Most of my stuff really is like that. Like I will do, 1 second. This is another one where
What was the name of the other bag that you showed?
the ping pong.
No, the
The,
one that had the applique on the outside. Was that still the ping pong bag, but with an
no,
applique?
no, they don't really have names yet. That's just an applique bag.
Like
And someone said
prototype.
the gray flower, the blue stripe. Yeah, we don't really have names for everything because, but like these two are the key. These are a lot. There's a lot of crossbodies where everybody wants
I
the
love
crossbody bag.
crossbodies. I am such a, that is all I own actually. I either own crossbodies or I own backpacks.
I have both of them. So this one is, do we tell them that this is the
Oh
one?
yeah, yeah. I totally forgot. Yeah. So guys, yeah, so I'll let you tell them. Go ahead.
Oh, well, this is the small Kiki and this is the one for the raffle
Isn't that amazing?
basket.
So that's gonna be in the that is gonna be added to the basket. Now look, just for point of reference, because I was floored. I mean, I figured something small. So just to give us an idea, so what's the retail value of something like that?
This one is 85.
That's amazing. Thank
And
you.
then this
And what's
is
the
the
strap?
larger,
So I
what?
think that's what's the strap made out of, or because that's I think what I remember seeing. Is that just like the webbing?
Yeah, this is a seatbelt webbing. Goes crossbody. So they come those two sizes.
Is it
And then,
both? The other one's called the Kiki also. It's just
yeah,
bigger.
this is Kiki small and Kiki large.
Cool. Now, did you decide to use what you called like the seat belt more or less so that it's adjustable?
Yes. Yeah, I just used, we've gone through the variations. I do have some cotton webbing, and then I have the polyester, the seatbelt webbing. It's all military grade.
Is that like
Um,
literally seat belts? And that why you're calling it seatbelt webbing?
it's used for seatbelts, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't know how many other styles you want me to show you. This was a new one this year. This was using the blue and the gray. And then there's the pocket on the outside and they're stitching. And then all of the bags, almost all of them, all the totes have pockets on the inside and snaps. They can have zippers, but I know many knitters are not. Is that a name nod? Was that to me? Oh,
Yeah, she's just asking as far as like the I'm not exactly sure. She's saying, is that a name? Is that name a nod to studio? And I'm not sure.
oh, Kiki. The Kiki one is named after my neighbor's dog, actually. We were doing a photo shoot one day and the dog was in the photo shoot and we put it on her like a little backpack. She was a funny little dog. And she started
Wait,
an
you put the
Instagram account.
backpack on the dog?
Yes, so that she could carry her own stuff, her own doggy bag. We never really perfected that doggy backpack thing, but that's why it's named the Kiki.
Oh my God, you could make me a llama backpack.
Sure. Do they like them?
No, they pack. All of our llamas are trained to pack, and we actually have like wooden saddles that go on them, and then we have what's called a pannier that kind of like gets hooked onto that on either side as like a little. But they actually make we use what we call day packs, and so a lot of times it's just a piece of fabric that drapes over them and then has pockets on the outside, and it's more of like a parade blanket, or because if you put anything in it, it has to be balanced, otherwise it just
Right.
falls off. But a lot of times it's a great way to also start training some of the young ones and things, to just like have something laying on them. I mean, don't worry, we'll come up with something better than that, but all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, they could have like a fancy pack.
They could.
Now, I want to remind everybody as you keep showing all of these, because honestly, I know that you're not, and I wouldn't either, but the amount let's give somebody an idea. I mean, because what I'm thinking is I'm seeing all of this with the handles and the rivets and the stitching and the cutting and then the pockets on the inside. And so do you have an idea in terms of like from start to finish to make any one of these bags? What's the time that you are looking at going into it? Or, I mean, I'm imagining, well, I don't know, do you set up an assembly line? Like if you're going to make a small kiki, are you making like 5 small kikis?
It varies on what I need at the time. If I'm doing for sheep and wool, then I'm making as many as I can. And a lot of it has to do with however I cut the wool when I'm making, what I can get out of that piece that starts, everything is square, like the Kiki's 8 inches by 25 inches or something like that is the way I cut them. It can, to do all of the steps, I don't even know. It adds up, where sometimes it's the same amount of time to make a small bag as it is to make a large bag, because it's the seams are the same. It's just more felt. So there's a big, it's probably an hour. Like you'd have to spend at least an hour if I was making one bag at a time.
That's it?
Or almost. Well, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's not, but I don't even know that that's right. By the time you pulled everything out and cut things, and I don't think it's
And
multiple.
I'm imagining, obviously, you've perfected your process as well. So, that helps things to, move along too. But obviously, being good at using a sewing machine and all of those things would be key to being efficient with your work. Because Lord knows it would not take me an hour by far if I set out to do something like this. Now, when you make them, are you creating, or are you working off of a pattern that you like a jig, like something that you follow each time? Or are you at the point where you just like freehand this? Or how do you, come about making, each one? Not that anyone's going to be like, well, this small kiki is an inch off of this small kiki, but, so how does that work for you?
There's no patterns. It's all just me. I tried to use a pattern once, but patterns are not made up for felt that's an 1/8 inch thick. It's all just, like I said, for the kiki, I just start with everything 8 by 25. I know where to sew the seams. I mean, it is written down because I don't remember everything. And then I cut an angle in the top. So there's cuts, like to the kikis, they're cuts because it's not totally square, but it is, after making a lot of bags for a lot of times. And they all do vary, because sometimes if there's an extra inch, I'll just add it to the bag instead of putting it in the scrap pile.
No,
So there's a lot
understandable.
that happens, and every
So
day.
can you show us some more styles that you have and different things, or even maybe anything with like the dots that you were talking about?
But this is a version with the dots, so you can pick your dot colors. I have like this meant more than this. I have all
Now,
of
where
the
did the
dots.
idea of doing the dots on the bag come from?
I was in a fabric store one day, and there used to be a needle felting machine where it looks like a sewing machine. And on the foot, that would be normally, it had like 5 little needles, and you could needle felt with the machine. So I didn't want to, the machine doesn't work logistically on the freehand of it. So I don't even know. It was sort of all off of that machine, and then how to figure out how to needle felt, and then what was easy to needle felt without making. There was a time that I did embroidery on the bags, and I embroidered with the sewing machine, and I'd embroider trees. Someone had me embroider a bike. I only did one bike bag, but there was,
So the dots, are you needle felting that by hand?
yes. Yeah.
And what are you using? Are you using roving, or what are you,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
I have a friend she's a farm in Virginia, Deli's Delight, and she dyes. So she has started giving me her little bits, her little end pieces. So I have many, many colors, and
Cool.
People like to pick their colors and pick their patterns, and we can go crazy with the dots. We can have just one dot. We can.
And you do that at the shows, you're saying, or do we also do it like via consultation? I mean, because it would be very hard, I would imagine, to some degree, unless somebody's going to like draw a picture of exactly where they want their dots and then, you know, send
Yeah,
it
we
to.
don't that precise, but we do. I do them at the shows. I used to do them. They were really simple, but I would just go with whatever bags were done, and then if people wanted custom colors, they would just place an order. And it finally occurred to me that I could do it at the show, but then I miss the entire shows because I'm sitting dotting the entire time. But it makes people happy, and then their bags are original. And even if 6 people buy the same bag, they all look totally different.
No, I feel like I've seen another design that is it almost like star-like, or am I just making this up?
The affinity bag, the stitches were, is this one? This was the affinity bag, and the stitches were more.
Gotcha. Okay. And now, so that design is being done by the sewing machine?
Yeah, I'm just going forward and reverse and forward and reverse. So they're all different. The sides are different. Everything's, even when I do them, it's different. And then I switched in this year. I started doing this. There's swirls in it.
Oh, okay.
So,
I like those.
well, someone saw the helper in the background. That's Petunia. If you weren't here for the introduction.
Too bad, right? That half the time our pets could not be more of a help. You know, it's that whole opposable thumb thing. It's like I have my pigs laying by the fire half the time as we're just running around like lunatics. I'm like, you know, you guys could provide something other than just cuteness, right?
Right.
So other styles. Do you have other styles that I'd love to see? Because I don't even myself.
This is more of the applique kind of thing. I did the X.
I like the boldness of that.
I have so many styles. The colors that are out here right now is a lot of the scrap ones. Sorry. So this one, I was just mixing them up. I mean, I really had fun with these this fall because they were more fun.
Well, and it's the same as like what you were saying, and that goes for myself as well. And you know, even like my customer base often knows too, you know, we might do a yarn, but that doesn't mean that we're going to do that yarn again. Or, you know, sometimes it's a beautiful accident, sometimes it's intentional. But you know, when you're the maker, I don't even want to see the same color yarns in every weight because I get bored as well. So I know exactly, you know, what that means. And, you know, while it might be frustrating to some when you have those one-offs, but at the same time, you know, it provides a uniqueness in which then people feel like they are getting a special bag and something that is, you know, unique to them or whether they worked with you or not. So I think it's kind of fun, you know, because there's always going to be something for everybody, right? Like what appeals to one person, you know, is not going to appeal to another. And, you know, somewhere along the line, somebody's going to be like, that's my bag. So,
And
now,
that
did you
is
say
what
you have a backpack?
I do. Someone just asked what kind of sewing machine that I use, and I think you can see it right there. It's called a Sailrite, and it's actually a boat sail machine. So this is that.
Now, what do you mean a boat sail machine?
For
'Cause I
making
don't
boat
know one
sails.
sewing machine from another.
No, it's a really just a big heavy metal machine. The first version that I had of theirs, it is for repairing boat sails. And
Okay.
even the last, I had a smaller version of the machine. The Sailrite was the brand. That is a US company. You could hand crank it, and so you could repair the boat sails while you were out on the boat. It's just durable and strong. It just has straight stitch, zigzag stitch, and weighs a bazillion pounds and goes through felt really well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I'm assuming it's more of an industrial type machine that can work with versus what somebody would use for fabric, right?
Right. And I started with the fabric one, and it handled it well. It just didn't enjoy it. They're very linty, so it's easier to clean. It's just more basic, no frills. So this was a backpack. a little backpack. You wanted to see a backpack, and then I have a bigger version of it. And you know, you can do the dots in whatever patterns.
Love it. Now, what have you found over the years? Like, do you feel like your styles that you've offered have changed based on trends? Do you follow trends? Do you just essentially make what you like? Does sometimes it come from recommendations from customers? Because as much as you say you like to be creative, in order to have a website and not have to take a million and one pictures of every bag you make, you do have to have certain styles, to just make it easy
Mhm.
that way. But I'm just curious how things have changed or evolved or.
Some of it is just kind of comes about from mistakes and boredom and stuff, but a lot of like the backpacks are totally a requested item. I've had a few variations of the backpacks, and then they were all bigger and people wanted tiny backpacks, so then I did the tiny backpacks. It varies from year to year what sells. Crossbodies are pretty consistent these past few years, but sometimes it's the tiny crossbody, sometimes it's a bigger crossbody. I have no idea what's going to happen from year to year. It doesn't even matter if I follow trends. Like Rhinebeck, they come and they buy, and I cannot predict. So I go very well stocked.
Well, that's all you can do, right?
Right.
And if you should be so lucky as to come home with virtually nothing, well, then great. You just start all over again.
That's right. That's the plan or the goal.
Now, I would assume, though, so give us an idea, price point range, just because, again, I don't have any idea. I mean, I'm assuming, you're going from larger totes, and then is your smallest bag the small Kiki? That's your
Yeah, this
smallest?
is the smallest one. This is 85. This one is 240. And I think this is 18 by something.
And
18
that's
this is
essentially
one,
your,
yeah, this is
your
one of the
largest.
bigger ones. Yeah, the ping pong is also pretty big, but this is 16 by 13 by 5. And a lot of bags I will customize rather. If people want something bigger, they want it smaller, they want more pockets. I've done computer sleeves. We put computer pockets into bags. I will add zippers to bags if they want zippers or snacks, and pockets on the outside is a big thing. Pockets on the outside this lately. So a lot of it just evolves as people ask me for things.
And this is what you do 100% of your time, yes, as your sole business?
I still work for the furniture maker. I do a little bit of computer work for him, but otherwise it's just this, yes.
And what other shows do you do?
I do
Or do you,
Maryland.
or maybe you don't need to. Maybe you're like, I do Rhinebeck and that is it. I am done.
No, not quite yet. I do Maryland sheep and wool. I do Rhinebeck sheep and wool. Those are my two standbys. I do some craft shows. So I've done the Philadelphia Museum of Art craft show a couple times. So I'll do that craft show circuit. I did the wholesale. I've done wholesale. The New York International Gift Show, which is for boutiques and shops. And I've also done the TNNA shows when they were here. And then MDK has been a really big supporter for several years now. So they've been really good account and kept me very busy. So I haven't had to add more shows. So we're good.
Well, I mean, at least it's always a good thing if you can, and also I would imagine it kind of ebbs and flows because again, as a creator and as a maker, if you were doing the same shows every year or making just the same as you said, the same bags every year, then that would be boring. And so, I would imagine it's kind of nice to kind of change up, where you're going, what you're doing. And, now at the same time, how was COVID for you? I mean, did you end up doing, which we didn't have shows. So how did that work for you in terms of just keeping things going? Did you just head down, make bags for when we would all come back in person again?
I did a little bit of that. The wholesale was good at the time. I did a few online shows, which were not you know, they were fine, but it wasn't the same as an in-person show. And then the wholesale kept me busy, actually, as busy as I needed to be. It wasn't super busy, but nobody was super busy, and it was slightly enjoyable.
I
I've
think
not
we all, I was gonna say, I think we all enjoy just being able to be home and not have to run around to a million different shows. And, that I don't know for you, but, then yeah, for me, the advantage of going through all of that was to see how you could work more efficiently, right? From home, as opposed to having to feel like you have to be in a million different places. So that's what I enjoyed about it as well, for sure.
I actually sewed masks for a local group
I was
that
gonna
were
say felt masks might be a bit heavy, right?
well, yeah, they weren't felt. They would supply the fabric, and so that was a whole different ball game again, sewing on fabric. But I did a bunch of masks for a local group.
Well, I mean, look,
Oh,
we all pivot to see, how we can use our talents and, help out when those things are needed, for sure. Now, in terms of the following that you have in the knitting industry, let's say, do you think that that is simply the connection between the fact that you're using wool?
yes, I think so. And then they function well as project bags. That's definitely my biggest audience is, and most solid audience and supportive of audience is the fiber world.
Because I think I asked you at one point we were chatting, like, did you have things specifically geared toward the knitting industry? Even in terms of, like, I was asking you, do you have like tool totes or notion bag, or you even saying, like, people have asked about like knitting needle cases, things like that. And maybe for all intents and purposes, people are like, we got enough of that stuff, and we're just happy to have like a bag and say it's made from wool. But I'm just curious on whether or not over the years, if you tried or had an interest in, doing something specifically for the industry, or you're like, this is what I do, and people love that it's wool, and then they use it for whatever they need to use it for.
Well, I mentioned I was kind of clueless for sheep and wool. I was just like, it's made of wool, so I'll bring it there. And I had no idea. I mean, I just didn't even understand. I know what a tote bag is, but I did not know a project bag was a very specific. I mean, specific, but not. But people like their project bags, and some people buy many. So
And that's the one thing I will say. I feel like I'm guilty of not, having a ton of those kinds of accessories. I tend to be more of like, I'll have, one bag literally that I use like every day as my like regular bag. And then maybe, which literally is a crossbody that is like a neutral color that can pretty much go with anything, that I'm wearing, whether it's my barn clothes, or a pair of jeans. And then I have, like, don't laugh, I literally have like two dress up backpacks. Because
dress up bags.
I do. Well, like fancier backpacks, because I don't know, I just love them. And so, because you can sling them over your shoulder, they don't have to go on your back. So they're like fancier, backpacks, I guess, because I feel like they're more like multi-purpose. But look, I guess some people have a lot of bags and some people have a lot of shoes. So, at the same time, yeah, I probably have more accessories in other things, related to my animals and stuff like that. But I do always love how much people like different project bags, and of course, because many of our people have multiple projects going on. So I guess if you're going to want to have it sitting in something, it might as well look nice, right?
When I did some of the shows that were more centered for boutiques and stuff like that, they see the bags as seasonal. So that
Really?
was really, and they're like, "Whoa, we can't sell it in the spring or summer. We don't want it. We only want it for the winter time, and it can't be used year round," which is kind of silly because if you can wear leather, you can use a felt bag, and
Yeah.
and and
I
they
mean, that's
wear.
an interesting, it's an interesting thought. I mean, I guess I didn't think about that, but I mean, I could see where some people would feel that, just the same as like, what, you're not supposed to wear right after Labor Day or something? I mean, haven't those
Right.
things gone to the wayside? Now, I know Lisa was asking in the chat as far as, and no, she did mention earlier that she does not knit, and not that that at all, has a bearing. Although you did say to some degree when you first started out that not knitting but creating a bag, I'm sure. So curious, like, what would be some things over the years that you learned, since these bags are loved by knitters? So what are some things that you feel like maybe you changed to accommodate it as a knitter's use? Anything that you could think of?
There should be no zippers. Knitters don't want zippers in their bags, which I never would have thought. And when I go to the craft shows, they all want zippers. But the majority of my shows are knitting shows, so we don't do zippers because the yarn will get caught in the zipper.
Now, did
Which
you always start out with a lot of pockets on the inside, or is that something that kind of evolved also, knowing that as knitters, they're going to be, wanting to keep a lot of things in there and then not have them lost in the bottom, amongst all the yarn?
I mean, you always I guess I always thought pockets were okay, but everybody likes zippers. I will put a zipper in anything. I I don't forbid zippers from the bags, but strategic zippers. Yeah, the pockets are definitely, and as much as they are very much used as project bags, even the smaller bags, there's knitters want their pockets.
Yeah.
So everybody wants pockets on the
Everybody's
outside.
gonna want pockets, right? Because who wants to go digging down to the bottom of the bag,
Right.
for XYZ, and especially these days with your phones and things like that. So, you can just never have enough pockets, that's for sure. At least that's the way I think about it. So, so
Pockets.
what I would love to do, is kind of maybe change the conversation a little bit based on what you and I have talked about, and see what, and that is true. I'm looking at people's comments with regards to the zippers, or some sort of closure, right? That could be another way of thinking about
Mhm.
it. Definitely a fan of a bag that's got some sort of closure on the top versus just wide open. More so because half the time things go flying.
Right, in the car.
In my car, I was going to say, even just today, I got cut off, and then my gym bag went flying, my book bag went flying. I mean, everything went flying and turned upside down. So yeah, having some sort of closure on the top of it to kind of keep things contained is always nice.
There are magnetic snaps.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
except the ping pong bag is the only one that's completely closure free. But like that does
Oh,
close it.
nice. Perfect.
So there are magnets. We had a question earlier. What's my favorite?
What's your favorite and least favorite part of making bags? Honest answer.
Cutting the leather is my least favorite. And my favorite, I don't know. The dots are fun. I really liked doing the stitched pieces this year. I mean,
I feel like your opportunity, I feel like you kind of shared that unassumingly, the ability to be creative and either use the scrap pieces, use different colors, to not have to follow a mold and be able to have your artistic leisure license, to add or embellish the bags. That to me, sounds like that is your greatest joy. And not to mention, you're also doing that in an effort to have zero waste, which is really cool too. So, but I'm curious, why do you, look, we all hate different parts of our jobs, or least favorite parts of the jobs. So what is it about cutting the leather that makes it your least favorite? Because I would have no idea what's involved in that.
It's just monotonous, and it's just cut the strips, measure them, cut them with a knife, and then you have to poke the holes because of the way I do the rivets, and you mark all the holes, and then you hole punch all the holes. There's probably tools that would make things far more efficient than I do them, but this is the way. So it's just a slow process, and it often comes at the end of my seat, like right before a show. It's one of the first days. I use an awl to mark it, and then I use a puncher. There are some things that she just asked that. There are some things that I just I just mark it, and then I have a rivet press that will punch the hole as well as put the rivet through, but I can't use that on all the bags. So that's that question too.
I'm super curious. So a lot of this work, it reminds me, look, we all have what I call slow jobs, and I hate slow jobs. And it depends on my workload during the day and whether or not I have patience for slow jobs. On the other hand, sometimes, like when we're getting ready for a show, and there's all those silly little things like rolling little balls of roving or putting labels on things. So when you work, maybe it would be dependent on different steps, but do you need background noise? Do you need entertainment? Do you watch something? Do you listen to something? So what is your mode of when you're working, because you're alone and you're doing repetitive things? So what do you like to do while you're working?
It's music or podcasts.
Interesting.
I don't watch because I get distracted. I can't get that distracted while sewing and cutting because things happen.
Well, I know for me, sometimes I'll have the TV on to just listen to, if there's something that I want to listen to, or if I just need noise. Because depending on what I'm doing, sometimes if I put music on, if it has a certain rhythm, it might distract me. I know that sounds dumb, but depending on what I'm doing. But yeah, and then when I'm feeding the animals, even though I really do like to tune into them, and a lot of times if I am talking to them, I'll turn it off. But my favorite thing is I'll listen to podcasts that don't require, and sorry for all my knitters, but I actually can't listen to knitting podcasts because I feel like I've tried, but I feel like most of them, which is a little bit of a disadvantage for what I do, is most of them involve some sort of visual. So then next thing you know, I'm doing what I need to do and they're talking about something and I'm like, well, now I want to see what they're talking about. So it's something that I've thought about. And if somebody knows a knitting industry related podcast that does not involve pictorial aspects of it, I'd love to know. But otherwise, I find myself listening to a lot of like motivational and business podcasts that's just kind of like on endless loop, providing information and also just a little noise in my brain to keep me focused. So I was curious.
It can't require too much concentration because then I stop and I just like you do, where you want to see something and I just like you have to think about it, and I stop sewing.
Yeah, I do like the background noise. And sometimes it's a podcast that's a repeat and I might have already listened to it. So then I'll just kind of roll through it again. Or I've also done audiobooks. I'll do that as well. But I don't know about you, because I have to start and stop so many times. I do find the audiobooks difficult because in a way it kind of breaks up the concept, I think, of all of it. So I have a hard time with that. I'll use those for like when I'm driving or something to a show. So well, I want to circle back. I mean, as much as I appreciate the questions that you guys are putting in the chat, and thank you for, some of the drops. I will be sure to save the chat so I can take a look at some of these podcasts that maybe I can tune into and listen a little bit with. But one of our main reasons, not only, I mean, really of doing this and getting to know each other a little bit more, or myself getting to know Julie a little bit more, having a better understanding of the process, I feel like is always something I'm super curious about. I mean, look, all of us as makers, regardless of what it is we're making, we are very aware of the work that goes into things and then often comes with a price tag attached to it. But as we all know, we have friends that are non-makers. And so sometimes that's hard, for people to understand. But I would have no idea, really, in all honesty, in terms of the start and finish of what goes into the bags. So I know I was super interested in learning about that. And as I said to Julia too, I always really curious how people end up where they are and what they're doing, because I feel like very few people, at least in this world, are like, I'm going to make felt bags. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go to college and I'm making felt bags. So it's always a story, of how people end up in where they are. And I mean, I guess at this point, for as long as you can foresee, this is something you're going to continue to do.
As long as people keep buying them.
Well, we're hoping to kind of maybe put a little drop in the bucket with that. And so, what I would love is for you guys to kind of tune in on this part and maybe hear us out. And we are looking to get ideas from all of you. And even if somebody happens to be watching this on the recording, well, then great, hit me up or drop it there on YouTube. But essentially, when Julie and I were talking, I love her bags. I do. And at the same time, I don't want to just, I mean, initially I was selfish. And I'm like, I asked her at Affinity, I'm like, do you think you could do like my llama on your bag? Like my llama logo. It's just a very stylized, very simple outline, kind of very artistic. If you, I don't mean to say if you've ever paid attention to it, but if you look at my logo, it might be something that gets by you, or maybe you have noticed it. So it's very stylized. But I think goes well for with what she does, and would be easy to do. So that was kind of an initial thought of like, I just want my own bag with a llama on it.
Mhm.
And then, of course, as I always evolve my thought process, we got to chatting. I found out she does some wholesale. And essentially, we want to do something small. Now, look, I totally understand that everybody's not going to be able to get in on a bag. And that's why I wanted some feedback, meaning maybe we could come up with something that's small that people would be interested in, or maybe enough people are like, hey, I think that would be really cool to have a bigger bag. I mean, again, we're not going to be able to hit a price point necessarily for everybody. Or look, maybe at the same time, people are like, well, heck, we'd love a coaster, with the llama on it. I mean, who knows? And that's why I asked Julia too, like, do you do little clutches or little wrist pouches, maybe something that's small, with then a little like wrist handle that could maybe duplicate as a wrist pouch, as well as also a tool tote or a smaller project bag. So really, what she's committed to, I'm like, before we got on tonight, I'm like, are you sure I'm going to be able to say this? So we're not looking to do anything huge. We're maybe looking to just do like 20. And if somebody ends up, we sell out and people love it, great. But she has promised me that we're going to come up with something. So we need to act fast. And we're going to be able to launch it at Vogue Knitting Live in or at the end of January. So she's not talking about a lot of time. And this is her idea. She said this. So I am, of course, excited about it because I love having new things and something exciting. And then, of course, for all of you that are not going to be at Vogue Knitting Live, that's why I said, look, if we are so blessed as to, with whatever small batch we make, if it sells out, then of course we can, make more in that sense. But I don't know. I mean, we were both like going back and forth, and no pun intended from your bag. We were like ping ponging back and forth about what we could do or what we wanted it to be. And even at the same time, now she's told me that she also has somebody doing embroidery for her. So, I just, in a way, guys, honestly, I'm like, who really wants to be walking around with a bag with my logo on it? That's just me. I mean, I know so many of you are like, you need merch and you need to do more of this, but maybe just a little llama would be cool. Or maybe it's not even that. Like maybe you're just like, okay, well, we just know that she's going to make something that is unique for lifers. Maybe the little llamas on the inside on the inside and on a pocket, so that you know what it is. I've got to brand it somehow, but maybe you don't want to walk around with a llama on the outside. So of course we could go down to the rabbit hole of like, okay, what color now? I have certain color palette, that is mine. I see some ideas that are being thrown in, which is super cool. And that's the thing. I want to think outside the box. I want to do something that is obtainable by all, if possible, if they want it. And that's why my hesitancy to do a bigger bag is maybe not, something that would work for the masses. And again, I also respect that everybody's styles are so unique. So maybe trying to land on something with your great ideas that is of interest to a larger population versus having it to do with, style. So that was kind of our question. And really, after her and I were going back and forth, I finally said to her, I said, you know what? Let's just do this as part of our Zoom, as part of our conversation. Let's involve people. Let's get ideas from them, because then it's like something that we've done together. In this conversation, this would essentially be the first time that we are collaborating and creating, kind of as a group. And I always love doing that in my stories. I love putting it out to you guys to try to get feedback, to try to get insight, because many ideas and many eyes, always make for something better in the end. So that's kind of where, we are at. Now, the other thing, of course, is that at Vogue Knitting Live, we'll also be launching or kicking off the sale of the third Life and Rainbows knit along. And that was something we've done in the past too. We had special project bags that were done for that. So I think really at this point, just trying to find something that is working for everyone. Now, I'm not paying attention to the chat necessarily, but Julia, if you're seeing some things coming through, or you want to jump in or ask questions, or you have comments, like, please, this is just kind of a open forum in a way that I think it'd be a little fun before we kind of wrap up for the evening, without, of course, having people jumping in, but you and I going back and forth.
Well, there are lots of ideas. There's llama mosaic ideas, which is interesting, with the scraps, to do the scraps. And someone said geometric bunnies. I'm not really sure what a geometric bunny is. I would need help with that one, unless that's also a mosaic bunny.
Well, and those of you guys that are throwing things in there, just so we can keep the continuity of it, since of course it's recorded and being uploaded to YouTube, definitely make sure if there's any elaborating. We're going to be saving a chat. I know Erin's taking notes, but definitely I saw somebody put something to the effect of shawl cuffs in there. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I would like it to somehow or other resonate with who I am. And again, even if the branding is on the inside, that way people know that it does come from life, and it's a collaboration between Julie and myself. And I think what's also so important is that there's always a sense of the maker in it too. And so maybe, incorporating some use of the scraps, or your ability to needle felt on it, but something that also makes it fun and special for you too, because I think that way it also makes it a fun project, especially since you're only going to have a couple weeks to do this. So you better make sure you like it, for sure. So that's that's kind of what we wanted to put out there for everybody. And I thought, and I hope that it'll be something fun. Certainly we'll take the ideas that you guys have, and we will by far kind of collect them. And then, of course, Julie and I will get together and, continue to chat. And then any further evolution, definitely continue to watch my stories as I put stuff out there. Maybe there's a question or two as we wrap up this week, and then very quickly turn around. Probably we'll have to turn around even quicker than waiting until next week to kind of get the ball rolling. And that way, if I have some more questions for you guys, I'll put them in the stories. Maybe there might be something where I end up having you, answer a poll of, a couple of choices of things. But I think, without it being too daunting, it could just be really fun in terms of including everybody in the process. And then hopefully in the end, coming up with something that you guys might like. So that
someone did suggest a needle roll holder. And the fact that I don't knit, many people have requested this over the years, but I need people to tell me what they want, because I don't know what needs to be in those things. And there was a couple different Notion bags suggested too. So specifics are good.
Yeah, and that was something that, when I was asking Julia earlier, has she done anything specifically for the industry? And again, she wholeheartedly is like, well, if I don't knit, I don't necessarily know what's needed. And then that follow-up has to be there, to help to create something. And who knows, maybe if we do one thing, but yet somebody is willing to provide ideas, the cool thing is while we might come up with something as a result of this, then Julia, you as well might end up having some other ideas. The best way to come across or to end up adding new things to your inventory is just by listening what people have to say and what they're looking
What they
for.
want. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you're anything like me as well, which it sounds like it, you're always looking to do something new, right? Because it's not interesting when you're doing the same thing day in and day out. So hopefully, if nothing else, this will provide some great inspiration for you to get started on a couple of new things for sure. So I think with that, I don't want to leave you with an open ended because, of course, I want to be like, is there anything that we've not had an opportunity to tell people with regards to your bags and your process? And maybe there is something we've left out, but at the same time, I don't want to leave you with that open ended question either. I just want to make sure that we've taken the platform and given an opportunity for you to, show some of your work and also be able to kind of let people in. To your studio, if you will, in terms of how you go about making each of the bags that people have loved so much over the years. Now they're getting fancy. They're dropping pictures and stuff in the chat.
Uh-oh.
Now you
We
have to
can't
save
figure
the
that
chat.
out.
So I love the enthusiasm, and for sure, we'll definitely be pulling things out of there as well. So one of the things that, of course, as we said, I want to make sure we just recap and also take an opportunity to share with you guys while we still have a great amount of people with us. So, couple of things. Do you have that blue bag again that we can show people, maybe for anybody who missed it? Perfect. So, guys, this is the small Kiki that is valued at $85 that Julia was nice enough. There's one that's already in the mail en route to me. So that's going to be included in our keepsake basket, as you will. That's what I kind of keep calling it because essentially my goal was to create a keepsake for one lucky person that has a little bit of something from all of our guests to kind of remind you about the 12 days of Christmas and everything that we've learned and enjoyed throughout this entire time. And then, of course, do you want me to turn it over to you so you could let everybody know the special you have for them? Do you want me to do that? What would you like?
Oh, you can do it.
So, to keep it easy for you guys, the same coupon code that we have, so TDOC23. So, Julia is extending the opportunity for you to shop with her through the 15th. So remember, if you're still trying to get some things in our basket, you have until Friday night, but then you have through the 15th. So that's almost another week and a half in which you can shop for anything on Julia's site and get 15% off. So again, using the same code as mine, TDOC23 will get you 15% off anything on her site through January 15th. So of course, thank you for that. It's not necessary at all, but I'm thankful, and I'm sure all of our attendees are thankful that you've been generous enough to provide that for them. And at the same time, just so that you know, so Julia is not at Vogue Knitting Live. So for those of you that are going, so that's also why this collaboration is kind of cool, because it'll give an opportunity for, a little bit of Julia Hilbrandt bags to have a presence in our booth for Vogue Knitting Live. So I'm super excited about that. Not only because I also love having things that are different. So I love having things that are special. I love having things that are custom. So I'm excited about that. And then reminding you guys, of course, that that's our same coupon code, but we're giving you 10% off most everything on our site. There are a couple of exclusions. And of course, we've talked about that over time. And if you guys have any questions, you know where to find me to be able to ask about that. So before we wrap up for the evening, let me take a look at what we've got. So yeah, we're going to do this quick because we were at 37. Now we're at 35. So let me take a look here. So I need you to choose a number from 1 to 35. And then I'm going to scroll down through our participant list to be able to pick our lucky winner for the evening.
8.
8. All right. So obviously not counting myself. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That is Jerry Barnes. So Jerry, you are the winner this evening for a $20 store credit with us at Life. Now remember, that's going to go into your account after the 12 days of Christmas are over. So thank you so much for, of course, being with us this evening, Jerry. And I hope that's just a little extra something to make it sweet for you.
She did know
Perfect.
most
Thank you.
about felt.
Yes, I did. That's so funny. Yeah. And my husband's a taxidermist. So there's the leather part of it too. So I kind of got it all wrapped up.
Well, there you go. Completely appropriate. So it must have been
That's
kismet or fate. So
too
appreciate
funny. Yeah.
completely
Thank you. This was
appropriate.
very enjoyable. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for being with us, of course. So good. Excellent. Well, with that, ma'am, I'm super excited to take a look, of course, at the feedback that we are getting from everybody. And you and I will begin conversations right quick so we can start throwing some ideas back and forth, because I definitely don't want you to be killing yourself at the 11th hour, but we've put it out there to the universe. So now we've promised. So we're going to have some sort of custom item for our lifers that will be available at Vogue Knitting Live. And yes, I did not forget, ma'am. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So we've got that chat saved so that we can grab that feedback and get working on it right quick. So with that, everybody, I do want to say thank you so much. Julia, I want to say thank you so much to you because, again, in all vulnerability, I know that this is not something that you normally do. And I can't thank you enough in front of our group for trusting me to come on and be with our community and talk about your process and talk about your creativity and the beautiful bags that you make. And it really, really has provided such an interesting, like, well-rounded list of speakers for us to have something a little bit different than the norm, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm so glad that we finally have had a chance to kind of get together in this way. And I'm super excited for what we're going to be doing together too.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. And I appreciate you again spending an evening with us. Now, don't forget tomorrow night, again, a little bit different from the norm. We're going to be joined by Laura Bellows, which is actually her name, although everybody wants to call her Jewel, but she is the face and name behind Jewel Designs, which we've now been carrying since my opportunity of meeting her at Affinity as well. So we'll be hearing all about her process and her working with her partner in Indonesia and how her beautiful jewelry kind of all comes to be. She as well will also be doing some styling tips for us on Zoom so that you can get a better understanding not only of the making of her products, but then how she encourages people to use them as well. So join us again tomorrow night as we're winding down on the 12 days of Christmas. I hope you guys all have a lovely rest of your evening. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Tabitha, can you
Bye.
save the chat one more time? We had one come in late.
All right. We're all set.
Okay.
All right. Officially, good night, everybody.